Alrighty, so today we are going to kind of walk through a few things. So our overall grant making strategy here at the Community Foundation, just give you a little big picture of where these grants sit within our grant making for the year. That includes kind of a three-prong approach that we started, gosh, a year, 2 years ago now, with the kind of different ways we do our competitive grant making cycle. So we'll talk just kind of broadly about what that looks like. And then really the meat and potatoes of today is the capacity building grants. So we'll walk through purpose, eligibility, the timeline, resources, how things work, the portal itself, all of the pieces, and have time for Q&A throughout and also at the end. So our strategy at the Community Foundation is really to lean into our role as a community funder in general. So we try to apply best practices in grant making where we can. That means that we're starting to shift into making fewer larger grants and making sure that we're being transparent in how we communicate with you all what our priorities are, what we'll be funding, what we won't be funding. And so hopefully you've seen that over the past really 25 years at the Community Foundation, but really intentionally over the past kind of five. Um, that means that we have just started in the past couple of years what we're calling our impact grant making. So we'll talk about that process in a moment. But that is these kind of larger grants, more move the needle, we like to say, on projects that are benefiting our community more broadly. But we also see our role as a community funder in the way that we provide operational support and these smaller grants. So the spring capacity building grants is fitting this operational support piece of our grant making. We know there's a lot of different funding opportunities in the county, and we are here to provide funding to a lot of different types of organizations, smaller grassroots orgs, but also trying to kind of balance that with the best practice of doing larger, fewer grants. So sticking with our three-prong approach right here of doing kind of both of those ways of grant making. So in the fall, we do our impact grants. Many of you are familiar with that. That cycle usually is August through November. This past year, we did award five $25,000 grants. In a typical year, it's, this past year we did 10 of those grants. And in a typical year, it's five. So we should likely see a return to five this next year. Those grants are specific to programs and projects, and then capital campaign support as well. Capacity building grants, which is what we'll really dig into today, is our spring cycle grants, generally February through May timeframe. These are smaller grant awards, 250 to 2,500, and this is in the operational support. So we do have some guidelines around that, what that looks like, and kind of some examples for you of what good requests are going to be in that area. But they are kind of more broad. Hey, we have this one-time request asks. And then our third prong is our giving catalog. So this is not a competitive or application-based cycle, just to make that clear. But it is a tool that we have for our donors to be able to assist in funding current requests and needs of our orgs. So we want to make sure you're aware of that. This is also in the program support area. We've seen that that goes better with donors. They get more excited about funding a specific request for a program or project. And this lives all the time on our website, so you can take a look at that. There is a training as well on that specific tool for you to learn how to upload your request, how to use it, what types of requests, all those things. So reach out if you need that information. Happy to provide that as well. All right, those are our three prongs. Overall, as well, I want to make sure we hit a little bit about our diversity, equity, and inclusion in our grant making. So you're aware that we are thinking about it, working through and trying to be as equitable as possible in our grant making. So that also explains a little bit about how our grants are working, especially on the competitive side. We offer certain things and do things a certain way to attempt to be as equitable as possible, and want to make sure you're aware of kind of the reasons why we're doing what we do. So we do use a short application. Hopefully it's really simple and easy for you. We try to make those as simple as possible. That also helps with folks who are all volunteer, folks who might not speak English as their first language, trying to kind of level the playing field and allow everyone to access the information and the funding. We do limit one application per organization for each grant cycle. So we'll talk about that in the eligibility requirements for the spring cycle as well. But that's another way we can help get those smaller grassroots orgs kind of on the same playing field as the folks who might have access to a specific grant writer for their team. We use a community review team. That's a big one for us. So we do have our competitive cycles reviewed by community members, sometimes folks who are nonprofit folks, sometimes that includes folks who are not, but really a broad range of folks in the community who can provide input and help us determine where our grant funding should go. Additionally, we don't require matching funds or user reimbursement. So we'll send one grant check for the full award amount at the outset of the project, and then you'll be able to use that kind of throughout. We do, of course, have some reporting requirements then, but we don't ask for matching funds and we don't ask for reimbursable grants. That's just not the way we work. Questions on any of those pieces, how we run our grant cycles, why we run them this way? So, digging into capacity building grants specifically. The purpose of these grants is really to support operations, growth, and sustainability of your organizations. We're going to focus on 3 areas of operational support: infrastructure, marketing, and then software tech. So we'll walk through a little more detail about what each of those mean to us, but those are the 3 areas of these grants. Capacity building more broadly, we use the National Council of Nonprofits definition: an investment in the effectiveness and future sustainability of a nonprofit. So very broad, trying to help kind of build the pieces for you all that allow you to sustain the work of your organization for a long time. Eligibility requirements for these grants are very similar to our typical. So we do only grant to 501c3 nonprofit organizations. We will also grant to those with fiscal sponsors, our school district, municipalities. There's some kind of caveats to that, but overall, 501c3 nonprofit orgs. The orgs must be located in and significantly serving residents of Johnson County. So there might be a chapter of a national organization, but if their program is happening here, they can apply for funds for the program here in the county. And then lastly, these specific grants are going to be in those 3 areas, so infrastructure, marketing, and software tech. We do have our grant, so I'll walk through those in just a second, but we do have our grant guidelines on the website as well as our read-only version of the application. So you can see all of that before you dig in and start your app. Make sure that you have a need that fits the requirements before you actually get in and start doing the work. So these are our kind of 3 areas of funding. Infrastructure is really around one-time purchases with larger impacts. We're not doing utility payment bills, event rental space, those types of asks, but we will do system upgrades. We learned in COVID, HVAC is a big deal and a big expensive one-time cost for a lot of organizations. So things of that nature, some energy efficiency updates, really kind of not capital campaign big, but a one-time purchase that will help your organization move forward in your physical space. Marketing and promo items, again, we're kind of thinking long-term, bigger picture. So evergreen promotional items that you might have, for example, the roll-up banners that you use at events, office signage, things of that nature. However, that's not the same as like, we're going to print 100 of these flyers for this one-time event. Same as we're not going to be looking for advertising specific, really kind of thinking big picture, evergreen items you can use for a long time. Does that one make sense? That one I think is a little nuanced. Seeing nods. Okay, perfect. And then software tech. This one is kind of as it sounds. So organization software that you might need a new CRM, you might need access to QuickBooks. I know a lot of folks are moving to QuickBooks Online instead of the desktop version, and that comes with a cost as well. So that piece, communications. So do you need a new phone system? Perhaps you need new physical phones, or just access to a system online like a voicemail system. Things like new computers, new video cameras, cords, all of the things you think of with software tech, that can be kind of a one-time purchase and then you're set up for quite a while is always great. We will not be doing funding for personal cell phones or laptops. I think that's pretty self-explanatory. Questions on those 3 funding areas, what fits where.
Ellie, would technology changes to a website be appropriate within that software and technology?
Yep, for sure. So you'll have to think through, it could fit in either that or the marketing promo. Website updates is also available for the marketing promo piece. I think it kind of depends what you mean. If it's like we're moving to a new back end, you know, website editor, that might
We're
be the
actually
software side.
we're trying to merge two
Yep,
different uh,
for sure.
websites that need to fit together better. So
Yeah, makes sense. Yes, that is a good use. Yeah, good question. Others? Okay, for those of you on the call and those who might be listening later, if you do have a specific question like that about a request you're thinking of and you're not sure where it fits or if it fits, feel free to reach out. Let me know. We can talk through that piece and kind of how to write it to make sure that it works within the boundaries of the guidelines. Um, but overall, hopefully this gives you good info, and this is on the website as well for you to access. There's a printable version for you, so you can share that with your board and staff and whoever might need it. All right, these are kind of general ineligible for funding pieces, so you might already be familiar, but just a reminder for folks, we do not fund deficit funding debt retirement. We do not fund direct support to individuals, political lobbying activities, anything that's not charitable. You can read the list here, but these are pieces we never fund, so you should be familiar with that, but just to make sure we have that spelled out here as well. This is also located on the website page for you to make sure you're fitting your request in where we need it. So our timeline for the spring capacity building grants, our apps will open on the 26th. So you have a little bit of time. Again, the read-only app is already available, so you can see that now if you want to start working ahead. Apps will close on February 20th, so you have a few weeks to get that hopefully short and simple and easy application filled out. And then our evaluations with the review team will happen March, April, with awards being decided in late April. The grant report will be due December, so that's a different time frame than you might be used to. It's a shorter application cycle because it's a smaller grant, but we'll talk about what that reporting is here in a moment. Right here. So reporting is going to look a little different for these grants. One, because they're smaller, but two, because of the kind of nature of the operational support. What we're asking is that grantees will be required to do one of kind of three pieces. Either a public social media post tagging us, sharing the grant information. That's helpful for us, but also hopefully for you to share information about what you're working on. A section in your newsletter or a promo that you do would be great as well. And then a direct mailing. So you do not have to do all three of those pieces. We're just looking for kind of one broad promotion of the grant and of the award itself. So we have you naming us as the funding partner in that post or piece of your newsletter or mailing. Any of those will work. And that's the piece that needs to be done by December. So hopefully a pretty easy report as well, and happy to help with any language you need around that, getting our logo, that kind of thing. Also, questions on reporting, how that looks? Okay. Alrighty, so we're going to move into some resources and where you can find things. So this is a screen grab of our website, so cfjc.org. At the very top of our website, hopefully all the time, you can see this menu that includes the grant making button. Under that button, there's a kind of drop down menu that includes a page called Spring Capacity Building Grants. That opens this page right here. There is also right now a website slider that has all of our grant info, and you can access it that way as well. Was there a question that I spoke over? On this page should be all the information that you need. But that grant guidelines, the kind of table that I just showed you a minute ago, and a printable version of that is linked right here. So that's a good piece to look at before you start your application, right kind of at the top of the page here. And then another thing to note as you go, so there is on this page an application button, just scroll down just a smidge and you should find that as well. But you can also always access the grants portal for all of your logging in, reporting, new applications, all of the pieces through that same grant making tab, and then a grants portal is on the menu. This is your login to the grants portal page. This My Fund login that's always at the top left of our page is not. This is our donor portal. So this will lead you to a login page, but it's not for your grants and your password and login will not work. So just know that the My Fund login that's always at the top, not the grants portal, that is a different button. So there's always, hopefully on the actual grants page, a login button you can click on. Usually it says apply here. That leads you to the grants portal. Otherwise, there is always grants portal access under grant making grants portal. Does that make sense? Good there? Okay, perfect. So I'm going to walk through what that looks like. If you are very familiar with our grants portal and how it works, you can zone out for just a little bit and then I'll ring a bell and ding you back in. But just for folks who are newer, maybe not as familiar with our portal itself, this is what the login page should look like when you hit the log into the grants portal button, not the My Fund button. It always has the information here to the right talking about new and existing users as well. So if your org already has an account, it will stop you when you put in your EIN and ask you to reach out to me. So we want your user account to be connected to the organization. So if you know your login, great, put it in. If you know that you do not have an organization account, you can create new, go through the process there. But otherwise, just reach out to me and I can get you logged in or create a new user if there's perhaps staff turnover or someone new filling out the apps. So if you do need to create an account, it looks like this, pretty simple, kind of fill in the buttons. The one thing to note, anything with an asterisk is a required field. Otherwise, fill in your information. Your kind of next or submit buttons are always going to be in blue. Same thing to create a user. So account is for the organization. User is your specific login as an individual human. So I can also add users under your organization if you need somebody new. Same thing, the one thing to note here, the email that you put in is your username, it is your login. It is also where all the grant notification information goes. So make sure it's an active email that you do check because all of the decisions, reporting, all of those pieces come to the email attached to your user account. It also will prompt you to confirm your email because of that same reason. So please do that. I don't think it necessarily makes you do that, but if you're creating a new account, make sure you do that. Make sure it's typed in correctly. That way you know you're getting all the information from the system, all those grant updates. Once you have a login, or if you've logged in again, this is a good example of kind of what your homepage looks like. Always at the top, there's a little home button you can go back to. There's usually this apply button that leads you to a page with all of the current open applications. They look a little bit different now. They just updated this system, but they're just in kind of square boxes instead of rectangles. So it's not too different, but it'll say the process name, kind of where you're at in the process, and then give you an opportunity to either edit or start a new application. When you are in an application, at the top right-hand corner, there is going to be these two options for you. Application packet is going to print you a PDF of all of the pieces of your application as it is currently saved in the system. That includes attachments. So if you've attached a budget, if you've attached a photo, whatever that is, it will print you the full packet. So you can keep that for your records. The question list button will do just the questions, not your answers. So that's the kind of the difference between the two of those buttons, just so you know. But you do always have access to print your PDFs there, so you can save those for later. When you're filling out app, again, pretty similar. Put the information in the boxes. It's hopefully pretty user-friendly. And then anything that has an asterisk is a required field. It should also auto-populate a fair bit of information for you, which is nice. So your org information, user information, and then sometimes things like amounts are also already in there for you as well. Difference between save and submit. So pay attention when you're working on an app. You can save it in the middle and go back to it. but once you have hit blue submit, you do not have access to edit it anymore. You can still see it and create your kind of packet, but you can't edit. So make sure you're waiting until it's good to go before you hit submit. Um, I can revert it. So if you have an issue or you find something that is an error and you want to change it, let me know. We can do that. But for the most part, once you've hit submit, it is sent to the universe and you do not have access to edit anymore. So just know that piece and make sure you do hit the submit button before the deadline closes, not just saving it. Okay, some FAQs. So applications, we're only allowing one application per org per cycle. So you can apply for this grant and also the Cauldron grant and also the Coralville grant. We have quite a few cycles opening here this spring. You are able to do one application per cycle, so know that. If you have questions about the grants management system on the web page for the grant, there is a lot of information and tools and resources for you there. So there's videos, there's kind of written tutorials, all of the things, but you also, of course, can always access me and ask any questions you might have. The question around donor advised funds. So if you have been around for a little while, you might know our process has changed with those a little bit. So we had previously shared applications in this cycle with donor advised fund holders at the Community Foundation. That's changed, and we share our donor giving catalog tool for the most part with those donors as our kind of first round of here's current open requests. So make sure you have something in that tool. It's important to have something listed. But we share applications if they're really relevant and it's a specific ask from a donor, but we're not doing the same thing we used to do, which was like inviting donors into the grant process itself. Does that make sense? Okay, perfect. That also means that our process is a lot shorter because we're not doing that back and forth in the middle, which is great. But wanted to make sure we highlighted that and make sure you have a giving request on the giving catalog tool because that is what we're sharing with our DAFs. And then, yes, we do have a small team of community reviewers who make recommendations for funding to our board, who approves those. So when you're writing your app, it's good to think through what does the general community member need to hear about this application. So always thinking of writing concise, direct, here's our ask, here's what we do. Being clear about those pieces because the reviewers might not know your organization already. So thinking through it as though someone has no clue who you are is always helpful. I like to tell people, send it to somebody who's not super familiar with your work, a friend, a family member, and just say, read this app. What questions do you have? Because that's always a good kind of first line of defense to make sure that the reviewers aren't confused when thinking through your app. Alrighty, additional resources for you, where to find things. So on the website should be everything you need, I hope. Grant guidelines, the process and timeline are all there. There's grant system tutorials, preview links, the read-only app, all of those pieces. We do also have announcements and reminders for all of our grant cycles in our newsletter. So make sure you are getting that every month. That's a really helpful tool to keep that information. We did send out a specific, actually, it might be coming out next week. I've scheduled, but it might not come out yet. A specific newsletter post that is just the open grant cycle. So you can see just grants information without having to kind of read through other pieces. So that is coming. Facebook is another good place to just kind of keep in touch and keep up to date on things. And then, of course, you can always access our staff if you have questions or concerns. I do want to make sure I touch on the other grant opportunities this spring so you know what's coming, what's already going. So we have new grants this year. The John E. Langhorne Leadership Grants are new. Those are already open and going, so take a peek at those, see if it's something that fits you. Those are specific to programs and projects doing leadership development for kind of all ages of individuals. So both staff professional development for your staff as an organization, but also programs and projects that are providing leadership development for any age. So think through that. Those are a maximum request of $5,000, and again, due on the 31st. Cauldron Fund for Seniors grants will be opening in March. Those are specific for programs and projects that assist adults ages 65 and up. Preferred to be adults with limited income, but kind of all senior support is eligible there. And then our Coralville Fund is also opening in March, and that is specific to projects that are benefiting Coralville residents. That one's a little bit bigger, so their max request is 10,000. Questions, comments, concerns on any of those pieces?
I just want to ask you about the leadership programs. This
Sure.
just like it can be like for the community, like because now we are thinking about to do like leadership classes for the immigrants community, so they can like learn about the system, the country, how it work and how things happen. Is that something we can use it to apply?
Yep, for sure. So as long as it's got specific leadership,
Yes.
not just kind of like, here's resources, but a specific leadership development piece. Yep, absolutely. And that grant is also on the website, Moss. So you should be able to go out to the website page and see information there as well.
Sound very good. Thank you.
Yeah, Laura?
Just so I can confirm, you said that we could apply for the capacity building or one of these other grants or and.
Sorry, I was taking a drink. And
okay.
so you can do, yep, one application per cycle. All of these
Okay.
are different cycles. Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, sorry, my language there might have been a
No,
little.
I'm sure it was me. I was
Either way.
I will
Yeah.
claim it.
And on the capacity grants, Ellie, are you planning on awarding like, so many grants in each of those categories, or might you do all of them in one category?
That's a really great question, Jana. We are
Like
not.
if you see, because I can have requests in every one of those categories. So if you tell me that you're going to get all your requests in one category, I will choose to do a different category.
Yeah, that's a great question. We have not divided that bucket up by those three categories. So we potentially are funding only in one. Yep. So whatever fits your ask the best, dump it in that bucket.
And you said this capacity building is up to 2,500. Do you know like how much total budget you have for those?
Yeah, that's a great question. Shelley, you want to take that one maybe?
There's 25,000 available.
Thank you.
Thank you. I was like, I know I'm about to cough and I need a break. Any other questions on these pieces, the other grants coming up? All right. Wonderful. Well, thank you for your time today. We will put the recording up on the website as well. So if you need access again or have another question, let us know. Otherwise, hopefully you all know how to contact me. We can be in touch if you have anything else.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Thanks,
Thanks,
all.
Shelley.
Take care.
Shelley.
Happy New Year.
All right. Bye-bye. You too.
Bye-bye.
Bye.